licence under Section 17 of the Licensing Act at Symposium 161 Ashley Road in Hale. Just before I start, I'm just going to run through the protocol for the meeting this afternoon. I'm just going to run through who's present. So I'm Councillor Anne Duffield, I'm the chair of this committee. My colleagues Councillor Butt and Councillor Jarman are the other two councillors that make up this committee of three. Other people present this afternoon, we've got Alex Murray and Natalie Owen from Democratic Services. We've got Mr Hinchliffe from Licensing, along with Ms Boyle from Licensing as the licensing manager, Sage O'Lenahan from Legal Services, and then George Yannis on behalf of the applicant, and Councillor Cllr Young, who's a representative on behalf of some of the objectives this afternoon. I'm just going to run through the protocol. This meeting is being live streamed, and should that live stream stop at any point, it can't be restarted. I think you've probably got a number to call if there's any issues or that drops out. We may choose to adjourn for a short time if we feel it's necessary, if we lose anybody from the meeting. But we do have all the written statements in front of us, and we'll award due weight to those as we feel appropriate. As is now, please mute your microphones to minimise any background noise, and the meeting will follow the order of the hearing that's been provided to each party. Everyone will have an opportunity to contribute, to ask questions, and to make closing statements. Should you need to interject at any point in the proceedings, please use the chat facility in Zoom to notify me, and then wait until I invite you to speak. Any such interjections should be kept to a minimum. It would be helpful if, for the purposes of the minutes, you can just introduce yourself when you speak. We run all our meetings in the same way. The licensing team will outline the case in front of us this afternoon. My committee colleagues may have questions or clarifications at this stage. We will then hear from the representative of the applicant, and again, we may have questions for him at this point. There will then be an opportunity for the objector to make any comments to the application and to make their statement. And while we'll allow them, through me as chair, to put questions to the applicant, this must be done in a discursive way. We then may, as a committee, have questions for the objector. There will be an opportunity at the end for all parties to make a closing remark. This meeting will then end, and we as a committee will deliberate on the case in front of us, the evidence within the pack of information and what we've heard today, and make our decision about the application. We will then come back into this meeting and let you have our decision this afternoon. Does anybody have any questions regarding the process at this stage? Okay. Just to make a few comments about the remit of this committee, we're here very much to look at licensing issues and to uphold the licensing objectives. Those four licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the prevention of children from harm, which outline all our decision making with the evidence in front of us for this decision this afternoon. If there's no further questions at this point, I'll pass across to Mr Hinchliffe to outline the application in front of us today.
Keiran Hinchliffe, Licensing Officer. Thank you, Chair. Under Section 18 of the Licensing Act 2003, members are requested to determine an application for a new premises licence in respect of Symposium at 161 Ashley Road in Hale, having regard to the representations received and the requirements to promote the four licensing objectives. The following options are open to the Licensing Sub Committee. You can grant the application in full on the terms and conditions contained in that application, also to include any applicable mandatory conditions. Another option is to grant the application as above, but modified to such an extent as considered appropriate to satisfy any relevant representations and promote those licensing objectives. Or your final option is to reject the application. A premises licence is required in respect of any premises where it is intended to conduct one or more of the four licensable activities, these being the sale or supply of alcohol, regulated entertainment, the provision of late night refreshment. This application was submitted by George Yannis in respect of Symposium at 161 Ashley Road, Hale, Initially, you can see at 1.2 of the report that the applicant applied for the following hours. However, during the consultation period, the applicant amended the licensable activity timings to those that follow at 1.3. This came about from a conversation with the environmental health officer, and you can see from the hours at 1.3 that there's been, on the scope of a license, there's been a separation of the premises from the ground floor to the basement area. As such, the opening hours that have been applied for are Sunday to Wednesday, which is 11 AM until midnight, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 11 AM till 1 AM. And then for the basement area, it's Sunday to Wednesday, 11 AM till 1 AM, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday is 11 AM till 3 AM. The application has been properly made and all the procedures were correctly followed. The application is attached as Appendix A, and the photographs of the blue notice in place and a copy of the newspaper adverts are also attached to the report at Appendix B. This application, in terms of your background and history of the premises, this application is for a new premises license and not a variation to an existing license. However, the premises is currently licensed, and a copy of that license is attached at Appendix B to this report for your reference. At 2.2, the applicant is given considerable detail into how he's described the premises, his business model, and some detail towards the operating schedule. At 3.0 is the operating schedule. The operating schedule is completed by the applicant. It contains the additional measures to illustrate how they propose to promote the 4 licensing objectives as required by the provision of the Licensing Act. The measures proposed below include amendments to the original application following consultation responses from Greater Manchester Police, Trafford Council Licensing, Trading Standards and the Pollution Control Authority. Those conditions there are listed below, and they'll be attached as conditions to any license as may be granted. The conditions have been highlighted in bold italics for the avoidance of doubt. If we go now to point 5 for consultation, as discussed, that there was a series of meetings with some of the responsible authorities. However, of the consultees as responsible authorities, no representations were formally submitted. We have, however, 2 representations submitted by other persons. These representations are concerned with the late hours that have been applied for and also public nuisance. Those representations are attached as Appendix D. A copy of the report and all the representations received has been sent to the applicant before this hearing, and those that have made representations have been informed of their time and date of the licensing subcommittee meeting and have been informed of their right to attend. Finally, Chair, your legal considerations, as always, conditions may only be attached to a premises license where they are deemed appropriate for the promotion of licensing objectives. They must be proportionate and not duplicate any existing provisions contained in other legislation. A justification behind a refusal or detachment of conditions must be given to the applicant. There is a right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days from the date the applicant is notified of the decision of the Licensing Subcommittee. Thank you, Chair. That outlines the report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. I haven't got any questions at this point. Does Councillor Jarman or Councillor Butt have any questions?
Not at this point, Chair.
Thank you.
Not at this stage, thank you, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mr. Yannis, there's now an opportunity for you to address the committee with the application that's in front of us this afternoon. I'll give you up to 15 minutes to do that if you'd like to go ahead. You're on mute, Mr. Yannis.
Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time today to go through this application. I know it's hard times and I hope everybody's well through what's going on. It's been a journey so far and I'm very grateful and impressed with the procedures that have taken place. Keiran and Jade have been great from licensing. It's been great speaking with Karen Packer and also Nazreen Ali from Environmental Health, and also speaking to Cllr Young. And I just want to say it's been an enjoyable, interesting experience The reason why we have chosen to come into Hale with this project is the symposium has been trading now for 4.5 years in Wilmslow. This is where me and my business partner currently live. We both went to school in Hale. I lived in Hale Barnes for 3 years. We know the area relatively well. I'd say 20% of our current guests that come to the symposium in Wilmslow come from Hale. And we felt that there was a great opportunity for us to expand our brand. We have full-time members of staff that are growing. They've grown with the brand. Some of them are settling down there. They need to grow with the brand or they have to move on. And we saw an opportunity there that if we were to take on a second site, it would be a great way to promote members of staff that are ready for the next stage and also expand on the team and the brand. Since coming here, I'm a chef by trade. My mother and I, we took over the premises in Wilmslow where the symposium currently is 10 years ago as a Greek restaurant. And we struggled with it being a first floor restaurant, but we were assigned to a long lease. My areas of cooking went elsewhere, but we had to look after the premises, and due to the demand we felt was there with so many restaurants in the area, there was nowhere for the over 25 clientele to go for a late night drink after dinner. And it's proven to be a successful move that we did. And I admit I was not an expert at the time of operating a late night cocktail bar, but we've learned as we've gone. We did come across a sticky period in which the licensing division from Cheshire East Council stepped in, and they said that our license had to be adapted to what we currently are trading as, which is more of a late night bar, as opposed to our existing license at the time, which was a restaurant and bar. There was one incident which raised 9 issues with the police. They were resolved in a very professional way. The police have personally said that they were impressed with how we dealt with it. And they sat down with me and created a new license, which they believe was up to date and they were happy with. We conducted that license. They've reviewed it ever since, and they have been very happy with the way we have conducted operating the existing symposium brand. Learning from that, we believe that taking our existing operation into Hale with what we've learned, we've got no doubt that it will be a similar professional operation and well suited there. Again, the location itself, the original landlord, I do know him, and it's given us an opportunity in which he has an empty premises. The rent is £68,000 per year. It's quite considerably higher than what we are paying in Wilmslow, but it's already reasonably fitted out. We've seen an opportunity there which we believe it would work as a business, a viable business. We don't want it to be to close after 6 months. What was there before was a nightclub. It had an average age of 19 to 20-year-olds. I know that because the crowd that used to go in there, the DJs that played there, we don't permit them to come into the symposium in Wilmslow. It's strictly over 25s. The over 25s rule that we have in place keeps away the younger crowd, which I believe after the hours of 12 o'clock do tend to cause more trouble than the more mature socialites. So again, that's very important that we would stick to that in Hale as a strictly an over 25 admission. But if they are with an adult, they will be permitted to come in should we choose so. Just a bit more of a brief about the symposium in Wilmslow. We have a lot of clients that come and bring their 21-year-old children with them. We permit that. We think that's fine. So there is an element of a guest discretion where we would let people in below the age of 25. But that's what we have to monitor that. We've kept the same since we started here, and I think that's very important because it's 99% the same repeat customers, local customers that come to us, and you get to know of those customers who are the ones that don't react well under alcohol late on at night. And there could be the perfect gentleman, but once they've had a few drinks in them, they change, and then that again will start disrupting public disorder, nuisance, safety, and that's part of our game. I believe that we have learned how to handle that, and we want to bring our experience forward and do a second site in Hale. I think the location itself, it's the only basement that's still existing in Hale, I believe. I can't see it suiting anything else apart from a upmarket late night cocktail bar. We're going to be emphasising mainly on piano. I understand about it being a live music venue and the kind of sound it would generate, but I can assure you, again from experience, the kind of music that we're playing, which would be predominantly piano, live piano, will not be causing any disturbance to any basement, which is even better. We have ideas to further protect the building from any sound pollution by extra insulation. We've been in there. We've brought a sound engineer. We can guarantee there will be no music coming out. We can guarantee there's no noise pollution that will come from the basement. The area that there is a question mark on is from the front entrance. There is a side gate. Our plan is to insulate that gate also to add to the prevention of any noise making its way to the back area, in which I believe there was a representation made and concern about people coming in taxis, doors slamming. And then the third area of noise was the staff emptying the glass bin bottles at the end of the night. That is guaranteed. It cannot happen. A strict condition should be for emptying the glass bottles, because it will guarantee to cause noise pollution. I know that again because one of our assistant managers in the symposium, Wilmslow, did work in Hale, and he did say how much noise the glass bottles caused at the back fire escape. So I think that's a very important one. There's no other reason for anybody to be at the back of that building at all. So the only way that noise can make its way around is from the front. There is a side gate. If we can insulate that gate also, I do believe that is a great step forward to preventing any more noise. As far as I understand, for the past 13 years, that site has operated until 3 a.m. and there has been residents that have been upset by the noise coming from that site. That has always been a nightclub. We are not a nightclub. We're a late night cocktail bar with piano. Yes, it can get a bit more lively after 12 o'clock, but it's not a nightclub, it's not a dance club, it's an ovals. Again, from my experience in Wilmslow, we're a first floor venue with no light coming into the building. I don't believe there's any purpose for us to take over the sites with a limited hours. I don't believe that will make the money that we're using now similar to, and they start making their way over to us between 11:30 and 12. But in Hale, it's more of a drinking culture. I know next door closes at 1 o'clock, and there's a new bar to open on the corner called People, which will be closing at 1 o'clock as well. The way I would envision the business work would be dinner drinks and after dinner, make the majority and a warm-up time for guests to start finishing off their restaurants around 11 o'clock, and the other bars in Hale. Then they'll start making the way for last drinks at the symposium. If we were to close at 1 o'clock, I genuinely believe the majority of our income would be between 12 and 1, which wouldn't be enough. I know that from the unit in Wilmslow, the symposium, between the hours of 2 and 2:30, there's 15% of our income comes in that time. If we never had that, we would be a break-even business based on the model we have. Again, I also wouldn't want to come into a project upsetting the residents. I wouldn't feel comfortable. It's not what not the way I would like to conduct business at all. I would like, if possible, whether there was a way to give me a trial, a license subject to review in 6 months. I'm that confident that we will be such a great that is, if in 6 months time there was, but apart from, I spoke with Karen Packer. She was brilliant. She really was. She gave me ideas which have improved our operation in Wilmslow. It was great speaking with her from the police. I believe with what we both, which we agreed together to put forward, by conducting the business in that way, there will be no trouble. I believe by conducting the business with Nazreen Ali's input from environmental health and the way to prevent any noise pollution, there won't be an issue with the noise coming out of that building. The only area is the front area. Again, with us being over 25s, we're not going to have a bunch of teenagers trying to get in there causing nuisance at the front. Who's to say that they might not try to come in a couple of months? That's something I cannot promise. In terms of preventing noise from the front door, the only issues we have at the moment are the doors slamming, I believe, from the taxis. If we were to have an in-house taxi service, which we're familiar with how important it was to keep now, we have the extra installation on the side gate also, but I'm also open to any suggestions. I'm open to talking constantly with the residents. If they've got any issues, I'd happily give them my personal mobile number, and I'm there to do anything I can to make sure we are keeping a smart venue, that we're not disturbing anybody. So if we can't get it right immediately, I want to get it right. If there's any way that we can put that in the license, then I'm very welcome to it. But I must stress how important it is that if you asked me to move forward, I'm already financially committed to the property. But if the license, in particular on a Friday and Saturday, if it's not, we agreed with Karen Packer. She asked me to put for final orders to be at 2:45, and then to start emptying the building between 2:45 and 3. If it was 2:15, I would not be able to move forward to the next stage of opening the premises, because I don't believe it will be a viable business. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but I have to be confident with the hours that we're going in at, that we're going to be able to make it work. The margins are very tight, but that's the business that we're in. And again, I'm very open to any suggestions. I do want to make this work. I want to take over the empty basement that's currently there and turn it into something special, something that's going to be there for the next 20 years. and I do think it's well suited for Hale, what we're doing. Two of our piano artists live in Altrincham. They're very excited about it. It's a great way to showcase local musicians. Again, we're not a nightclub, we're an upmarket cocktail bar. And I think that from what it has been in that premises for the last 13 years, people do see it as a nightclub. I think by us coming in there, it's definitely a step forward to keeping Hale a smart upmarket village, which it is a beautiful village. I think will be well suited there.
Right, thank you, Yannis. That's great. We've had a few problems with your sound along the way that you might not have been aware of. So we've just turned your camera off, just so that makes your sound a little bit better. But I think we've probably heard everything. It's been a little bit slow at times of the joys of doing these meetings through an online platform. But thank you very much for your submission there. So I wonder whether or not Councillor Jarman or Councillor Butt have any questions for you at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. Could I speak first? Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Quick one. I know that one of the points is that you said that the doors and windows will be closed in the basement. In terms of being able to, air to circulate, I'm just thinking perhaps would there still be the any air conditioning in there, or anything that is going to still allow sort of free circulation air without obviously compromising on the noise pollution if it escaping in any way?
Yeah, the unit is fully air conditioned. The condensing units are placed at the back of the building, but there's definitely no noise that are generated in the condensing unit. They're completely silent. And there's also, there used to be an extraction fan, which is now blocked off. So it is completely sound. There's no cavities for the air to come out of.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Jarman, anything at this point?
Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions. I noticed, looking at the plan of the premises, the basement area is obviously quite large, but the upstairs part, relatively speaking, with the thumbnail sketch to the right, is relatively small compared to the rest of the premises. Also, there doesn't seem to be any tables and chairs shown on the plan, so I was wondering what activity goes on there. Is it just a bar, or do they have standing drinking, or what sort of activity goes on there? And also, while I'm on that subject, what's actually on the other side of the partition to the upstairs part of the premises?
So firstly, thank you, Councillor Jarman. So the partition that you are talking about upstairs is currently an office. Our intentions for upstairs would be to generate, it would just be a boutique wine and cheese bar with artisan coffee solely. So the area is around 550 square foot in total. If you would picture that area being completely open, with a small barista coffee machine at the back and wine and cheese displays all around. It's a fashion that's quite trendy in St Albans and work very well. There's 2 or 3 of them there. So it's upstairs. We anticipate it being open from just before lunchtime straight through till the requested hours as a boutique wine and cheese shop bar. And then downstairs, as you can look at, if you look at the plan to the far right hand side, that's where the grand piano will sit, and the empty area, it will be mixed between small bistro chairs, and then after 12 o'clock some of them will be moved as we anticipate to get busier. There will be, we anticipate a little bit of dancing as well, And around the bar area, it just left empty. We hope for it to be a busy bar. On quiet evenings like a Thursday, we are looking at perhaps having a curtain to make the venue smaller. That's what we're doing in Wilmslow, and then bringing the baby grand piano forward to create an intimate jazz bar feel. It has to feel like a jazz bar.
Okay, so there's no permanent seating. It's just occasional tables with like food and things on them.
So on the plan, yeah, the booths, yeah.
Okay.
As you come down the stairs.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Can I just ask you about your smoking policy?
Yes. So the smoking policy will be to the front of the building, next to the doorman, so you can monitor them and ask everybody to smoke quietly. I think in Wilmslow we have a capacity of, on a Saturday evening is the only date but that we hit capacity of 220 guests. It's very rare that we actually do hit the capacity, but based on that, there's usually between the hours of 12 and 2:30, there's usually around 5 to 10 smokers, which are always situated next to the doorman.
Okay. So are they actually outside on the street?
Yes.
Right.
We can put them in front of the gate, but we're going to have to make sure we insulate the gate. That's something that we're going to have to look at doing. My idea with the gate is, if we insulate the gate's 7 foot high, that would be the ideal place for the smokers. But if it's going to generate noise, then we'll have no choice but to bring them to the front of the building, going towards Hale train station.
Right. So is there a shelter there, or are they just stood on the street in all weathers?
They're just stood on the street in all weathers.
Not exactly ideal, I would have thought. But can I just ask you about the staff? Obviously, you will have staff who will smoke. Where do they go?
Our policy is between the hours of midnight and 3, no staff are allowed to smoke in Wilmslow because they can only go to the front of the building. I think that's not professional, and that's the policy that we have. But before midnight, they have to smoke at the front, and preferably not in uniform. Well, definitely not in uniform.
Right. So there's no smoking at the back at all?
No.
Right. In terms of access to the back from the bar, how do the bar staff go out with rubbish and bottles and stuff from the bar? How do they access the rear? Do they come through the premises?
When to access the rear, the rubbish and glass bottles will be taken out after 9 a.m. in the morning from the day before. So all the bottle bins will be left within the building and then taken out. So
what if they get full before that, or the rubbish, the general rubbish?
There's that much space in there. We could have an extra 10 bottle bins. There's a large storage room. I discussed this yesterday with Marius about what happened before, and they did end up cling filming the bottle bins. I mean, we do the same in Wilmslow. The reason why we do that in Wilmslow is we don't want members of staff that late at night going out the building and leaving the building open, and it's also dangerous because we have stairs, and I think it's a great way to operate. I don't think there's any reason for anybody to go out that building unless it's a fire, in case of a fire, which God forbid would ever happen. But there's no issue with, there's that much space for extra bin storage that you could fill up 10 bottle bins. And then in the daylight, after 9 a.m., next door is a cafe, and on the other side is a restaurant. It's quite bustly, the street at that time. I think there's no reason in that time, when the cleaners are there, between the hours of 9 and 5 p.m. is when the bin should be utilised.
Okay, when do they get collected?
I've spoken with the collection team, and they're next door, they get collected at 10 a.m. So that's an easy fix for us. We'll just make sure that the bin collection, whichever day they choose, it has to be after 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you. That's enough for me for now anyway. Thank you.
Thanks. I've just got a couple of points for you, Mr. Yannis. Can you just talk to us a little bit about the incidents in Wilmslow that led to your change of licence and the conditions that are in front of us today? Have they been developed, the conditions that you're looking to add on to the original application here, have they been developed across your Wilmslow venue?
Yes. So in the almost 5 years in the end of September that we've operated, we've had a total of 9 incidents. Of those 9 incidents, 8 of them was from one evening in which a group of ladies, middle-aged, ended up having a disagreement and pulling each other's hair, and one of them also threw her fists at another lady. That was probably the worst day I've ever witnessed in the symposium, and they were ejected from the premises in a professional manner, and they complained to the police. One of them was trying to sue somebody from another party, and that's the first day that I actually met the local police team, and they came in and they basically asked us to adapt our license, in which we did do, and that's proven. I'd hate to jinx myself, but we've had no incidents since.
How long ago was that?
That was 2.5 years ago.
Thank you. And just in terms of the conditions, at section 3, talked about having a sound insulation and a noise pollution plan. Are they sort of ready to go and be delivered to our licensing authority should you be successful today?
Yes, but we have to install the extra insulation first to conduct. So our plan is to install the extra insulation, and then we're going to bring a sound engineer he can cap the music, so the music is impossible to go over the level that we set it to. And our intentions are, once the insulation is in place, we'll put the cap to where we feel it is the maximum it can be, go to the nearest residence area, and if we can hear any noise at all, we're going to reduce it. And just to go off the conditions, I would say that it was 50% from the conditions that we created in Wilmslow, and then 50% are from Karen Packer from Trafford Council Police, which she has asked for from her experience. And all of those conditions I welcome with open arms. I think that they're all very important and a great way. I think that it's important to have in a modern day drinking establishment. I think it's a step forward. Regardless, I think those conditions, the majority of them, if I was in your shoes, I think that they should be implemented. Regardless, I think that they're great.
Thank you. Councillor Butt just wants to come back in. He's just got another question for you.
Yes, of course.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I believe you'll be operating also as an off license, in a sense that the people can come in and buy it to consume off the premises. Is that correct?
No, we won't be selling bottles of wine as a retail. You have to drink them. Sorry if I confused that. You have to drink them on the premises. There'll be, quite unique bottles of wine, but we won't justify selling them on a retail price.
Right. Okay then.
But just if you can look at how small the area is, these fashionable wine bars in St Albans, they don't actually have a bar. The wine is stored in bins, like small pigeonholes in the wall, and guests can come in and choose the wine and taste them and sit down on high stools. It's a small space, but if we can generate 40 to 60 guests throughout Friday and Saturday enjoying wine and cheese, it would be well suited for the high street, I believe. and it will just help us a little bit more with the rents and the rates.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman, have you got anything else at this point?
Sorry, none at the minute, Chair.
Councillor Young, we can pass over to you if you've got up to 15 minutes to make your representation to us, please.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak. There are a couple of points that I'd like to bring out. I've had several very long conversations with George trying to find a solution to way the premises can be used. And I've always made the point with him and with the residents that new businesses coming into Hale need to be encouraged because we do need a viable business district. On the other hand, we do want our residents to be able to sleep through the night if they want to without getting woken up in the middle of the night. So it's a question of finding a fine balance that is going to suit the business and suit the residents at the same time. Opening until 3 o'clock in the morning is something that everybody who has found out about it is absolutely, I'm sorry to say this, George, I've said it to you often, is really what we would find quite unacceptable. It's about the only item of the entire application that we really disagree with. I mean, I admit that Mr. Yannis has gone out of his way in trying to sort out all the various problems with noise that experience teaches people will take place. You might be puzzled if I'm sort of talking or taking this attitude if there have only been such a limit, a low number of applications. But the point I need to make is that over the last 5 years, in that little area of Hale, between Lytham Grove and Westgate, there have been 14 planning applications, 5 of which are to do with retail or for additional space. And probably these applications would also have gone into licensing as well in the back. And residents in Lytham Grove and in Westgate have been writing letter after letter after letter over the years. And a lot of them seem to think, we've objected before, why do we need to object again? Why can they not look at what has gone in the past? And I try to explain to them, every time there's a new application, you have to make a new letter. You'll probably find this yourself with people in your own ward. It's quite difficult trying to get into people's minds. And this application, I'm not sure what went wrong or why, but people weren't aware of what was happening. I think there must have been a blip on the consultation at the beginning. And by the time we started getting round and advising them and trying to chivvy them up to write in, it was getting too close to the end of the time when applications would be accepted. And this is why there have been low ones, but certainly people talking to me, I can think off the top of my head for at least a dozen households in the area, in Lytham Grove and the bottom of Westgate, where the people whose gardens look over the garden. How can I explain? If you think Lytham Grove and Westgate make a sort of bend with Ashley Road, and the gardens in the back are like a long tunnel that go up to Hazelwood Road, I think it is, and people's bedrooms are all on the garden side. Now, the residents, they're not against having club of this sort in the area, but they do want to sleep at night. And experience tells them that it's noise from staff clearing up and exiting the premises that continues well beyond the listed opening times. And they'd like a noise management plan, if anything comes in, that should include control of staff closing up and cleaning operations, and set a final close down time of all activities. They want to include limitations on staff congregating in the yard behind the premises, and staff using the private car park at the rear of the club leading to Lisson Grove. I mean, they reckon that 3 o'clock closure is just too late, because people will then be exiting after 3, maybe 3:15. By the time the staff come to leave, it could be 3:30. And it is too much. I think there would be, the way that Mr. Yannis is talking of operating, I think would probably be something that people could put up with, but not that late at night. I don't know whether you can reduce the time. I know George is saying he can't make money after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, but I mean, we do have to try and find a workable solution to this. That's really basically all that I've got to say, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Young. I've just got a couple of clarifications for our licensing officer, please. The hours on the existing licence for Suburbia, the opening hours, are no different to that Mr. Yannis is asking for. There's one more, Sunday to Wednesday, 11 till 1 a.m. The current licence is 11 till midnight, but Thursday to Saturday, the current licence is 11 till 3, and the licence that Mr. Yannis is applying for is 11 till 3. Can you just clarify that for us, Mr. Hinchliffe?
Yeah, the licenses, the existing licenses is also included in the report, and those timings match, but also the seasonal variations are not included in the new application, or they've been removed during the consultation period. So if anything, there's a slight reduction in hours.
Yeah. And there's no saturation policy in place in Hale at the current time that we can take into consideration during this application. There's one in Sale, I think, one in Altrincham, but that doesn't cover Hale.
No. Important question, Chair. There is not a saturation policy for Hale, so you cannot take that into consideration.
No, that is something that worries us.
Sorry, Councillor, 1 moment. I'll bring you back in 1 moment. And just, Councillor Young's just raised around the consultation, Mr. Hinchliffe. Can you just clarify that was all done legally and correctly, please?
I can, you know, the blunt answer to that is that it was legally and correct. The notice was in place, and the newspaper advertisement. There is an issue which is often mentioned, and that's the fact that there's not a letter or address in terms of a consultation where neighbours are consulted in that way. The bones of the Licensing Act is that there needs to be a blue notice on display, and there needs to be a newspaper advertisement. It's a month long, it's a 28-day consultation. So for the purposes of the Act and for the purposes of our council policy, that was compliant. The consultation was accurate.
Councillor Young, would you like to come back in?
Well, yes, I know what they say about the consultation period, but the first an awful lot of the residents heard about the fact that this license was being applied for was when I personally spoke to them and told them about it. And they would all tell me, oh, we hadn't heard about this before. Why didn't someone let us know? It's a point. I know it's very, very difficult. You can't expect licensing to be going over very wide area, but I don't know, it's something that is a problem, and I've come across it, you know, on a number of occasions about this, the fact that we have to let people know.
It does get raised with us, it gets raised with us quite a lot. Yeah. It has, however, followed the legal process. We may not agree with that legal process, but we have followed a legal process within that. I get the frustrations that come out of that, but for our purposes today and the evidence in front of us, we've followed correctly a legal, or the licensing team have followed correctly a legal process, whatever the surrounding frustrations may be with that. I get that.
No,
I don't know if
I appreciate that.
Councillor Butt or Jarman, any questions at this point?
Not from me at the moment, thanks.
No.
Yeah.
Councillor Jarman?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to, I don't know whether it's a question or to point out to Councillor Young, she mentioned about the staff congregating at the rear of the premises under a previous incarnation of the establishment. I think what Mr. Yannis said was that this wouldn't happen on for this establishment because he was preventing staff going to the rear of the premises at least late at night. So I'd just like him when he makes his submission to confirm that really. But that's as far as I understood it, because it is a critical point really that needs covering. Thank you.
Councillor Butt, anything at this stage? No? You okay? No. Just one more point to make before we just go back and see if Councillor Young wants to add anything else to her statement. One of the things Mr. Yannis said at the beginning is that he would be happy for a temporary licence. That's not something that's in our gift to do. But what is in our gift and what is in the gift of the residents and yourself, Councillor Young, is to bring a review at any stage. So should the venue open, should we give a licence on whatever terms and there was issues, there is the right for anybody either to bring forward that review. Hinchliffe, can you just add to that at all, just to if there's anything else to add, just to make sure that we're covered off that regard?
I think you explained it well. There's no possibility to issue a temporary, like we have temporary event notices, but the capacity is much smaller. There's only a number of events, so it's not a reasonable process. So it would be a full license, and of course, if it should be granted, and of course, if there were issues and evidence of issues associated with the property, a councillor or any person can bring review. So yeah, your points are valid. So.
Councillor Young, do you wish to make any other statements as in closing before we ask Mr. Yannis just to make his closing statements at all?
The one thing that I would ask, if you do decide to grant this license, is questions like this, like the no smoking at the back, no bottles to be disposed of, that Mr. Yannis said, wouldn't dispose of any before 0900 in the morning. But he claims it's only going to be piano music, nothing like a heavy metal band or anything like that. But could these be put in the license as conditions? Because I'm aware that you were giving a license, not to Mr. Yannis, but to the premises. And if the premises were to be disposed of to another operator, these are the conditions we would like to see operating. Is that possible?
Mr. Hinchliffe, can you just comment back there, please?
Yeah. So in the report, the statement report, there's a detailed operating schedule which was amended during the consultation. So during the consultation period, we obviously have representations which you contributed, Councillor Young, but we also have the consultations from responses from the responsible authorities, and as part of that, we have environmental health officers as agreed wording with Mr. Yannis, and the conditions are included should it be granted in the report. If those were to be honoured by the subcommittee, they've been prepared. Effectively, if those conditions go forward, then they're attached to the licence. Should it be transferred to any other person, those conditions would remain, and they include conditions on the bottles being emptied at certain times.
There's nothing about the types of music, Councillor Young, but there's very much about that not being audible outside of the building, which is sort of the main thing, obviously, that the residents are concerned about. So across the conditions agreed by environmental health. Noise from music and associated sources, including DJs and amplified voices, must not be audible to such an extent that it constitutes a nuisance at any noise-sensitive premises. All external doors and windows should be kept closed when regulated entertainment is being provided, except in the case of an emergency. And then there's things around exits, deliveries, refuse. So no amplified music be permitted to any external part of the site. And then the applicant, which we've talked to Mr. Yannis about this afternoon, should submit a scheme for approval for sound insulation. So environmental health will need to approve that. And then that's the same, they will also need to submit a noise management plan, which outlines the measures to be implemented to mitigate noise associated as customers are leaving the premises. It's about as comprehensive conditions-wise that I've seen in some time, and especially when that's brought together with environmental health and the police. If and should we grant this licence, there will be things in there that are very specific that can be brought forward for review should there be any issues in the future. Have you anything else to add, Councillor Young, at all, to make sure that you've had every opportunity?
Just the question of the music. I mean, I would be happy with the idea of a piano and a violin or guitar or anything like that, but could there be a restriction? We don't want any of the heavy beats that are going to vibrate through the ground into the neighbouring houses.
I don't think we can say you can't play that type of music, but very much around the noise. Audible. But I think all of that of the beats outside and any vibrations is very much that sound insulation and noise management. But I'm going to ask Mr. Yannis to address that just as he sums up as well. So, Mr. Yannis, if there's things in that Councillor Young said this afternoon that you would like to address back with any other clarifications and to make your closing statement at this stage, please feel free to do so.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say, to start off with, as Managing Director of the company, I can assure you if Councillor Young or any of the local neighbours lose sleep from my operation, I won't be able to sleep either. I will not sleep either. The premises has traded till 3 o'clock for the last 13 years, but should you grant this licence, you're going to have a managing director in place that really does genuinely care about the neighbours, a professional operator that will improve whatever's been going on there for the last 13 years. I can guarantee you that, as a promise. Even if we had to close at 1 o'clock, but we weren't to conduct our business properly, you're still going to have noise between 1 and 2 o'clock. So I don't think it makes a difference what time we close. It's how we operate. We're going to operate properly, and I don't see to feel comfortable to make the money we need to make. That's more important in time, because if at 1:30 you're being woken up from sleep, there's no difference if it's 3:30, in my opinion. Because the correct time to go to sleep would be well before midnight for the average person, I believe. And in regards to the music, if we don't operate to the way Nazreen Ali has put her conditions, I think that, yes, I would like Councillor Young to come in and listen to the style of music we'll be playing. I think she would like it. It's not going to be heavy metal, but I think it's a great suggestion to say, to protect the licence, that if I was ever to leave from there on behalf of the symposium, whoever else was to come in, they have to follow the licence that I've been granted. I think the licence is a beautiful thing in such a unique case of which this is, that conditions are put in there. I think it's brilliant. If we stick to that, no noise at all should be coming from the basement, and the noise management plan is put in place and conducted properly, which it will be. If we're not doing that, then I suggest everybody should put forward the license for review. I wouldn't want that to happen, but I'm not confident. I'm knowing full well there's that many conditions in there that if I don't adhere to those conditions, I'm going to lose my investment and all the jobs that I've given to all my staff that I've taken with me there. I would be crazy to go into that premises and not making sure that I'm not upsetting any neighbours. I would be insane to do that, because I know how easy it would be for the neighbours to then put forward a licensing review, and what would happen then? It would be a disaster on my side too. So I'm that confident, Councillor Young. I don't want to upset you. I think you're lovely, but we've been in the premises. We've checked it out. We know we can do the job. But I need those hours. I won't feel comfortable otherwise. I won't feel confident. I don't think there's any point saying to me to close at 2 o'clock or 1:30, because if we're creating noise, you're going to be woken up anyway. And we will be the best operators on that block. I will make sure of it. And if there's anything else, all you've got to do is pick up the phone to me. I'll be there and I'll make sure I'll do it. If the insulation needs to be 30 centimetres thick, I'll make it 30 centimetres thick. That's an easy fix.
Mr. Yannis, Councillor Butt's just got one final question for you before we close.
Yes, thank you.
It's just a quick one, as perhaps Councillor Young can perhaps explain as well. It's just that, has there been any specific noise complaints in the past? You know, have they been to do with cab doors or boisterous behaviour outside, or?
I can just clarify that, Councillor Butt. What we can't do here is take into consideration anything that may have happened that's not about this particular licence.
Yes, yeah, it was just.
Therefore, it's quite difficult for us to because there probably has been, and it might not be, but it won't have been attached to this particular licence, because this licence is a new licence, and we've had no representations today from anybody about this licence and GMP and environmental health around anything attached to this licence, because it's not sort of going there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It was just to help.
It's just what we can and can't, with the evidence in front of us, take into consideration.
No, it was only just to help Mr. Yannis, perhaps, you know, be able to deal with anything specific, you know, just to really try and see if they would benefit him to know, you know, any. I mean, I know they've been mentioned, but it was whether there'd been any such sort to be able to help them. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yannis, is there anything to add, or shall we deliberate at this stage?
I'd just like to add that, first of all, thank you for everybody again for taking the time in doing this. But even if today you were to gift me with the new license, which I believe is a better license than what was going on before, I still need to then have the planning approved, because the planning, I don't know why, but for the last 13 years, the premises operated without the planning till 3 o'clock. So I've been speaking with the planning office, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen today. And then I'm going to call up tomorrow to explain and say I want the planning to be changed to what is currently on the new license. So it's a completely legitimate business. Again, I can't open up without the correct planning in place. So I hope that giving them the information of what happens today.
Consideration today, but it gives Councillor Young a heads up to have another go if she wishes to do so in the future. So thank you very much for everybody that's spoken today. We're going to break away into a side room, and then we're going to come back. So if Councillor Young and Mr. Yannis wants to stay, we'll go away, and then we'll come back again in I imagine 10 or 15 minutes. So Alex is just going to sort all that out for us. So thank you very much for attending this afternoon, and we'll see you shortly. We have deliberated the information in front of us this afternoon, the representations that have been made, both from Mr. Yannis as the potential operator, Councillor Young, and taken into consideration the other representatives that made statements to us that aren't here today but are in those papers. So Mr. Yannis, the options in front of us this afternoon, we we're pleased to say that we'll grant the application in full and on the terms and conditions contained within the application. We wish you well. Please be a good neighbour. Councillor Young will be holding you to that with her local residents. Our licensing team in environmental health will look forward to seeing the sound insulation and noise management plan before you can open and take that forward. And within that very comprehensive set of conditions that are attached to that, we hope that you run a good and considerate venue in Hale.
Thank you very much. I won't let you down. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I believe.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Young, for attending this afternoon as well.
Thank you for letting me speak. George, we'll have to talk about planning now.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. And
all matter of planning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's why give up now? Hey, I believe in what we're doing. I wouldn't do it otherwise. And
well, good luck to you, Mr. Yannis, and I'll close. This is still being recorded, so I'll close this meeting now. But thank you all for your attendance this afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Lee.